Good morning, everyone. We're in day 8 of the Donald Trump criminal trial in Manhattan. It's been an eventful 2 weeks. We've been covering this each and every day. Karen and I, every morning, we talk about what to expect each day in trial. And then after the trial proceedings conclude for the day, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and I give a summary of everything that happened that day in trial. And then we have a scorecard that we create at the end of each day of trial. We're up to 7 scorecards that we created. Of course, at the end of today, we'll create a Trump trial day 8 scorecard. You can and should collect them all if you ever want to refresh your recollection. What happened day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now we're in day 8. But just to remind you, everything that happened yesterday on Thursday on trial day 7. The prosecution, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, filed a new application for contempt against Donald Trump based on new gag order violations. Justice Merchan, the judge presiding over the case, has reserved his ruling on the prior gag order violations. There was a hearing that was held on those. Separate gag order violations. These are new gag order violations, including Donald Trump making statements about the jury being unfair to him, as well as Donald Trump saying that the jury is 95% Democratic, which is not even true. There's a hearing that will take place regarding the new violations next Thursday. Initially, it was set on a Wednesday. I believe that's now going to be next Thursday, given that there is no trial on Wednesdays, as I'm sure you all know. We then had more direct examination of David Pecker, and this was really compelling testimony. Karen Friedman Agnifilo has previously described this as one of the most powerful direct testimonies she's ever seen in her career, and she had worked at that Manhattan District Attorney's Office for close to 30 years and served as the number 2 at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, including at times as the acting district attorney. To remind you all of some of the compelling testimony by David Pecker, he talked about the catch and kill deal that was made with Donald Trump. Pecker was in the room with Donald Trump on numerous occasions to confirm that Donald Trump was involved in making this deal for Pecker to not only make fake news stories about Donald Trump's political opponents that were defamatory and false to help Donald Trump in the 2016 campaign, but to affirmatively buy the rights to people who had bad stories about Donald Trump so that those stories would not be made public. Pecker talked about first buying out the rights to a story by one of Donald Trump's former doormen, and then ultimately Karen McDougal, a woman that Donald Trump had a long-term affair with while Melania was pregnant and when Melania gave birth. Pecker explained in his communications with Donald Trump, he never believed that Donald Trump was even concerned about Melania at all, but Trump was concerned about the campaign in 2016. And that Pecker was doing all of this specifically to help Donald Trump win in 2016. Pecker talks about Donald Trump thanking him for catching and killing these bad stories. Thank you for helping me with the McDougal situation and the doorman situation. Also, Pecker talks about a conversation he had with Donald Trump where Pecker said, you haven't reimbursed Cohen for the money that Cohen paid to Stormy Daniels, and Cohen's getting antsy. Are you going to reimburse Cohen? To which Trump said, I'm going to, don't worry about him. I'll take care of him. He's got his taxi business. He's got his medallions. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. Pecker did say he was not involved in the buyout of the Stormy Daniels story, which we all knew. But Pecker really set the foundation for a concerted plan by Donald Trump to buy off these stories that would be that Trump perceived to be detrimental to him. That was Pecker's testimony. There was some cross-exam at the end of the day. So today I expect, and Karen, you could talk to us about it, that there will be more cross-exam. How long do you expect the cross-exam to be? What were some of the highlights that you saw yesterday? And what should people be focused on in the proceedings today?
Yesterday was just an enormous, enormous day. It was hard for me to keep track of everything because, in addition to this trial, obviously, this United States Supreme Court heard the presidential immunity case. And I was trying to follow both at the same time. And while all of that was happening, the Harvey Weinstein case was overturned in New York. And the reason that's significant is there is implications for this particular case because the Molyneux rule in New York about being able to introduce prior bad acts in order to not show that you have a propensity to commit a crime, but to prove that either motive or intent or lack of mistake, etc., was they found in the Harvey Weinstein case in a 4-3 decision, a close call decision, that the judge made an error in when they make that balancing test. And we talked about it where they did it here, where the judge has to balance the probative value of going into all of Donald Trump's civil E. Jean Carroll case, the civil fraud case, and other prior bad acts. That the prosecution wants to go into, and both for Sandoval, if he testifies, as well as Molyneux, a lot of that is going to when the judge weighs it, he weighs the probative value versus the prejudicial effect for Sandoval, and for Molyneux, they do a similar kind of weighing to see, because you don't want to prove propensity, you want to see does it go toward a particular element of the crime. And obviously, both of those issues came up in this particular case with some of Donald Trump's prior bad acts, whether it's the Access Hollywood tape is a piece of Molyneux evidence that the judge ruled, well, I'm not going to allow the tape itself, but I am going to allow you to talk about about the facts of it, a transcript of it. So these are similar rulings that have to do with prior bad acts, whether they come in on your direct case or you can cross-examine a defendant on the stand. And the Harvey Weinstein case, New York is a little bit behind, to say the least, when it comes to sexual assault laws. And this is just one more example of how New York is behind the feds that have Rule 413 and many other states that would allow this. But I'm not going to. That should be the subject of a whole other hot take or podcast. But it's so frustrating. Anyway, Judge Merchan is going to have to look at that ruling and see whether he still thinks that the law, as spelled out by the New York's highest court, the Court of Appeals, still would provide for the rulings that he did here. So, literally three things were going on at once yesterday, and I almost couldn't keep track of them all. So, getting back to what I expect to have happen today. Today is going to be the cross-examination of David Pecker, and I think that it probably could take the whole day, but who knows how they're going to play it. They might want to just get in and out because clearly David Pecker knows where all Trump's bodies are buried, proverbial bodies are buried. He knows all the dirt. And lots of people were speculating yesterday that Trump's message that Pecker is a nice guy the morning before he went to court was kind of sending a message to him and other witnesses about, kind of be nice or else. And Donald Trump never attacked David Pecker publicly the way he's gone after Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen. He also hasn't attacked Karen McDougal, which is so strange, or even the doorman. But anyhow, so who knows why? But like I said, some people have speculated that Pecker knows a lot about Donald Trump, and if Pecker doesn't like to be cornered, and if Donald Trump's lawyer comes too hard on him, he'll come back with whatever he knows and has. So it's sort of an interesting scenario that they have. So it could be short cross-examination where they kind of get in and out. There were some really powerful things that came out in Pecker's direct, and the Pecker's direct examination, I think, took a lot of people, myself included, by surprise in terms of how incredibly powerful it was. It really spelled out this. Just first of all, two things: the complete and utter lack of standards and sleaziness that tabloid journalism like the National Enquirer has. I mean, just how just unbelievable what they do in terms of buying stories and suppressing stories and amplifying stories and changing stories, etc. Which is really not something I think that a lot of people were aware of. But one of the things he talked about was, look, this is what we do, for people and other celebrities like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mark Wahlberg and other politicians, and they go out and they find these stories and they buy them and they suppress them or amplify them depending on whether what their relationship is with the person, etc. And he had a very long-term relationship with Donald Trump like that. However, the second thing he spelled out was, okay, this is what that world is. But he also knew there's a line you can't cross. And he over and over again reinforced that he knew, because he talked to an attorney and they talked about it explicitly, that it would be a crime to do it for a politician, because paying someone for a story, or to suppress a story or even to amplify a story, is considered an in-kind campaign contribution. And so that is illegal, and he knew it was. At the same time, he formed an agreement, which is called a conspiracy, with Donald Trump and Michael Cohen to do this very thing when Donald Trump declared his candidacy. And that just came across so powerfully. He thought, however, if he got reimbursed, then he's not giving an in-kind donation, so he doesn't have to declare it. It would make it not illegal. But when Donald Trump stiffed him and didn't reimburse him for doing it for the doorman, when he paid him a certain amount, many thousands of dollars, and then he paid $50,000 to Karen McDougal, he thought he was going to get reimbursed. So when Stormy Daniels came around and she wanted, and she was shopping her story, and Donald Trump was saying, what do you think we should do? And we should pay her off. He basically said, through Michael Cohen and to Donald Trump directly, he had conversations with both of them about it, that I'm not a piggy bank. He doesn't pay he doesn't pay people back. And on top of that, it's illegal. And a third thing is, she's a porn star and I'm not paying for it myself, because I can't have AMI be affiliated with a porn star. My biggest client, Walmart, won't like that. So he wasn't going to just pay the money for no reason. And so that's how it got turned over to Michael Cohen, who then put the money out and had Donald Trump reimburse him. And that's the whole story we're going to hear from Michael Cohen when he testifies. But David Pecker is extremely credible, because even on the stand yesterday, he was saying things like Donald Trump was my mentor, and he revered him almost, and he really still cares about him and still considers him a close friend. So he doesn't have a vendetta for him. He's not out to get him. And he didn't say Trump was involved in things when he wasn't. He wasn't trying to exaggerate it. And that makes it very powerful for a prosecutor, because he was just trying to tell the truth, good, bad, and ugly. There were some, what I'm looking for today is, there's one text message in particular that the judge wasn't sure if it's coming into evidence. If it does, this text message is very powerful, because it's contemporaneous. It's not like a he said. This is a text message back and forth at the time that is now preserved. And it's a text message between Dylan Howard, who is Pecker's number 2, and Pecker, where basically Dylan Howard was saying to Pecker that if Trump were to win they were talking about this I think this was about Karen McDougal, but it was definitely about paying either Karen McDougal or about Stormy Daniels. I think it was Karen McDougal. Anyway, but because this should come in, and the reason that prosecutors want this to come in is because he's a co-conspirator. Dylan Howard is also part of this conspiracy, and co-conspirators' statements are an exception to the hearsay rule. And it says this text message basically says from Dylan Howard to him. It says, if Trump were to win, the favors won't hurt. And at least if I win, I'll be pardoned for election fraud. I mean, they were absolutely aware and having discussions that this would be election fraud if they engaged in this. So that's extremely, extremely powerful if that comes in. So that's one thing that I think we'll see and expect to see that today. I think one of the issues is Dylan Howard is not available to testify. And so normally that's how these things come in. But there were other pieces of evidence like that were really, I think, really powerful and really compelling. Pictures of a picture of David Pecker and Donald Trump walking past the Rose Garden in the White House. Just to think about the luminaries and people who have done that. And here now we've got these two sleazy people, frankly, talking about porn stars and Playboy models and affairs and all of that and payoffs for an election. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. And just many, many times, David Pecker said over and over again how this was definitely about the election and it was not about the family. It was not about Melania. That never came up. It was all about the election and how he was. There was this blurred line between campaign people and the White House people and Trump, and they were all on board to try to do the same thing and not let these stories come out. So I came away after his direct examination just blown away by how powerful his testimony was and what a great witness he is for the prosecution. But then, of course, comes cross-examination, and cross-examination is when the defense comes and pokes holes, right? And they come in and they got to come out, especially with the first witness, they got to come out strong and they got to hit punch hard and really try to make an impression. It's very different than a direct examination because they have nothing to prove. They don't have to prove a story. They don't have to tell a story. They have to poke holes because they just have to create reasonable doubt. That's what cross-examination is for. And so the cross-examination of Pecker was fairly, I think, fairly interesting because, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it today, they're not walking away from the facts. They're not saying that this didn't happen. They're not saying, don't believe David Pecker. They're saying, yeah, it happened. These are the facts. But first of all, this had nothing to do with the campaign. This was his business model. He did this for everybody. He did this for 30 years, for celebrities, for politicians, for everybody. And they're going to hammer that home, I think, a lot more. They're going to say this is checkbook journalism and you had a profit motive and that's why you did these things and your ratings went up and you made a lot of money off Donald Trump. So this was in your interest. This had nothing to do with the election. And he said they're going to say, yeah, of course you suppress negative stories about Trump because it was good for business. So he's going to show that this wasn't about the campaign, and he's going to give as many examples as he can about that this had nothing to do with the campaign. This is just what he did. And I think that's an effective line of cross, and hopefully no one will buy it, but someone could. He also said that it was a mutually beneficial relationship. He's going to also bring up other like Rahm Emanuel, Arnold Schwarzenegger, other elected officials, stuff like that. So I think you're going to see a rapid fire, but not to attacking him type of cross-examination. I think he's going to focus on all the times Donald Trump wasn't around, that he dealt with Pecker dealt with Michael Cohen directly or other people. He's going to try to show that Trump didn't know or wasn't involved and distance himself from all this and make it seem like this is all David Pecker and all David Pecker's business model. So I think you're going to see a cross-examination of that. Could go the whole day. I was trying to think who the next witness would be if they don't go the whole day. And I don't think it's going to be a huge witness. Like, I don't think it's going to be Michael Cohen. And the reason is because if I were the prosecutor, and I'm just thinking through in my head, it's Friday. I don't want to put a really important person on a Friday. There's no court Monday. That would give them 3 days to kind of see how they're doing and then prepare. I'd want to just kind of do a throwaway witness, and I wouldn't want there to be 3 days. I wouldn't want my direct broken up by 3 days. I'd want my direct to start in the morning and go for a long time for any really important witness. So you might see another witness, but it might be someone involving business records or putting some kind of records into evidence, something that's not going to matter that much going into the weekend. You're going to want to start next week fresh and have full days and full attention with the jury. Pecker's testimony was broken up over several days because they had those short days, and no prosecutor likes that. So that's my prediction. Again, what do I know? I don't have any inside information from anybody. I'm just guessing. That's if I were in the shoes of the prosecutor, that's what I'd be thinking if I was going to have another witness available for today, for this afternoon, assuming we get through Pecker, the cross. But the cross could go longer, could go all day. I'm sure there's a lot to cross him on. So that's what I expect to have happen today. The other thing that may happen is, if you recall, Ben, the judge had the hearing on several of the gag order violations. There have been many more added to it, and there's another hearing scheduled for next week. I think it was Wednesday, but then Trump complained that I had campaign events scheduled for Wednesday, so we switched it to Thursday. The judge could rule on that. That is something the judge could rule on today, and so we could potentially see that. And there, like I said, there are certain pieces of evidence that I think are really powerful that he was reserving on. He didn't make a decision on whether they come in or not, and we could see some of that today as well.
Well, the only inside information I have is what I shared with everybody already, and I think everybody knows, in the sense that we did a political beatdown yesterday with Michael Cohen, and to the extent Cohen's going to be testifying tomorrow, it just didn't seem that way based on what he was saying on political beatdown, even though he said, hey, I'm not going to be talking about this case anymore. And he made a clear statement that he's not talking about it anymore. But nonetheless, I feel like we would have known on political beatdown if he was going in tomorrow. I'm not sure we would have been able to hold the political beatdown yesterday if he was going to be a witness the next day. So I certainly don't expect him. I think it would have leaked by this morning if it was going to be someone, flashy like a Hope Hicks or a Kellyanne Conway or somebody like that. So Karen, I think you're spot on that it's probably, after Pecker, maybe someone who authenticates more records or documents, or someone who's maybe go over the books and records, go over checks and things like that. And then maybe, you start early next week when trial resumes with some of the kind of bigger witnesses to re-engage the jury. The redirect may take, time as well. So we will see, but we will keep everybody posted every step of the way, as always. So, we'll see in a few hours after court concludes today, after trial. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and I will be here live. So make sure you check back in, check throughout the day on the Midas Touch YouTube channel feed to get all the breaking news updates. Make sure in the meantime, after you see this video, you're clicking on all of the Midas Touch videos so you're fully up to speed on all of the hot takes and duets that we've all done on this channel. You can check out some of the other live shows from yesterday. And look, it's an honor, Karen, to be able to host these with you each and every day. Your insight is absolutely invaluable. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all the legal AFers out there. Everybody watching too, I want to remind you, in addition to subscribing to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe as well to the Legal AF audio podcast. Just search wherever you get your podcast. Just search Legal AF, type it in, and subscribe. Hit that plus sign or whatever it is to subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to help this programming if you subscribe to the Legal AF podcast. And we appreciate you. So we will see you. We will see you soon. Karen, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Enough! Send him to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.